Hi everybody, Tashi here from Pixie Mommy's Reborns. Happy Sunday. It is a beautiful day today. Welcome back to my channel. And to everyone new, hello and welcome. Today you are looking at my Levi sculpt by Bonnie Brown, and this is Stellan, to those of you that have not met Stellan. He is actually the newest baby to my collection, and we're going to appreciate Stellan here on this beautiful Sunday while we chat. I do have a few other babies up on the bed. I might toggle around a little bit, but for now, it is Stellan's show. So I apologize in advance for any outdoor noise. It's beautiful out. It's too hot up here to have the windows closed. And of course, with the air conditioning running, it just makes too much noise for you to hear over. So I thought the little outdoor background noise would be doable. So thank you for joining me here today. And Stellan is wearing a vintage John Lennon two-piece set. It is a yellow side snap, and it has the classic John Lennon giraffe and little elephant with the bird on it, kind of like embroidered on the front side of the shirt. And then the pants are it's the yellow with that classic print. It actually says John Lennon on it, and it's all his different animals. And I thought of this because in my live on Friday night, we were talking about older prints from I was asking about a next print that I was looking for, and we got into chatting about, does anyone search for older prints, which of course the John Lennon is not just an older print by Carter's, it's vintage. It is what my second daughter had for her nursery, who's now 18. So long story short, I only had like a brush, a couple little things from my daughter, I think a brush and a sheet. And when I got into the reborn and silicone doll collecting and discovered this hobby, I decided to bring some of the pieces that I had originally for my daughter back. So I searched eBay, and, I've been growing my, quote, John Lennon collection. I actually brought the quilt up today. I have a beautiful receiving blanket, which is actually currently in the dryer. I thought it was dry, and it wasn't. And this here was my daughter's brush. I have two John Lennon brushes. Both were hers, and then my third daughter and my son used as well. And just a little spray bottle here. And then this is Stellan's, actually. This is his handmade wooden teether with his name on it, that his first mommy, which is Inez at the Reborn Doll Collective, she was Stellan's first mommy, and she had that made for him, so I have that here. So, today's chat, I thought we'd talk a little bit about where we all got started, and possibly for some of you newbies in the hobby, or those of you looking to get into the hobby of collecting these amazing lifelike dolls, reborn dolls or silicone dolls. The vintage stuff and the live that I did on Friday kind of just had me reminiscing a bit. Now, I'm still kind of sort of fairly new in the hobby, as it's been in October it'll be 2 years that I'm here on YouTube, and then it was probably about 6 months or so prior to that I first stumbled across these dolls. And I stumbled across silicone first. So just a Facebook friend, an acquaintance friend through business had liked a page. And you know how Facebook says, so-and-so liked this page or that page. And I'm pretty sure it was Maria Lynn dolls. It was a silicone, one of the silicone dolls. And I went on and my jaw just dropped. And I was like, oh my gosh, what I've been dreaming of my whole life since I was a little girl actually exists. And from seeing the silicone, I saw that there were reborns and was just totally and absolutely fascinated. I spent many weeks, probably over a month, looking at the silicones first, not really realizing much about the reborns, and wound up actually placing an order for a silicone, which was my first silicone baby, the little peanut sculpt. Which he was adorable, and I actually, excuse me, I did my homework, and he was very well painted. I really liked the artist painting. He was molded, casted, and poured. He was a Don Bowie sculpt, molded, casted, and poured by Kristen Engler, and she was the one that painted him for me. From what I can see on Facebook, he was one of the last dolls that she painted. I think she's more into the pouring and stuff now, but don't quote me on that. I could be mistaken. Anyway, and I love that very mottled newborn look, and he was very, very mottled, and Kristen had integrity, and of course the baby took a lot longer than what she said, and knowing nothing about the hobby, I was like sitting around waiting for him to be shipped, and like he hadn't even been started, but I'm not that kind of a person, so I didn't, I just waited. Anyway, in the meantime, I went on, the buy and sell, the Facebook buy and sell for the reborns, and found myself my first reborn, my first few reborns. My first reborn came before the silicone was even done. And I was just enamored. I was just unbelievable that these dolls could look and feel so realistic. The hair was something that really, I don't know if you all remember what your thoughts were when you first got into the collecting, but seeing that the hair could be rooted and was rooted and looked like it was growing right out of their heads, and you could actually brush it, and that was absolutely just fascinating. It was all fascinating to me, but that was so fascinating to me that was a big buying point, I should say, for me. I wanted to make sure I got a doll with hair, with lots of hair in the back of my head. I'm thinking, oh, well, if it falls out over time when you brush it, I want to make sure I have a doll with a lot of hair so that I have, like you don't realize that, a good artist, a good, rooted doll, their hair is going to stay and stuff like that. But, the stuff that goes through your head. So, hair was a big thing. And although I still love the lot of hair on my babies, like, I'll point you out to Asir, who has all these beautiful curls. He needs a conditioning, though. His hair is just definitely needs to be done, but just all those wild curls and lots of hair. But I came to realize, and it took a long time, ladies. It wasn't all that long ago that I realized that the very sparse looking rooting can look the most realistic. It's very, very newborn looking, and a beautiful sparse mono rooting is a treasure. Now Stellan, to those of you that are new, he is going to be re-rooted. I believe it's the end of this month. There's a story behind that. I'm not gonna digress, so I'll get into that. So this is it's just he's gonna be re-rooted. Let me just leave it at that and not explain everything I did in his original hair and blah 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 blah. Anyway, And when he is rerooted, I definitely want a more sparse rooting for him because, and now especially on the babies that have a beautiful cranial structure, detailed sculpt with, the cranial structure where you can see the bone, like the Levi sculpt has such an amazing cranial structure that I want to appreciate that. So I don't want to give him, lots of hair, although he looked adorable with more hair as well. Like, it was like a tough choice, but for this sculpt, that's what, I wanted. But I remember, I bought from a, private collector that was selling her reborn collection. She had gotten into the, high-end silicone. She was selling all of her reborns. So I got some they were older sculpts, but I got some very well done reborns. I lucked out. And back then, $300 for a doll was jaw-dropping and was like, oh my gosh, I was trying to find cheaper, it was a scramble. It was like, wow, this is so, so expensive. Can you imagine that? Like, as you go along in the hobby, that is barely a deposit for some doll, but it's, anyway, it's when I think, I don't know about everyone, but I've heard a lot of collectors talk about being shell-shocked, a price tag, ticket shock, tag shock, however you say that. Just, it's a big pill to swallow on the prices to, get the realism and the quality that you're looking for. Not to say that you can't come across great deals or new artists that are very talented that are, selling their work, very inexpensively to start out, to build up. Not to say you can't find that. I'm just saying in general. So that was a big thing. The hair was a big thing. This woman had probably like 10 babies up at the time, and I wanted to make sure I got a doll that had hair. Believe it or not, I thought about the magnet for the passy. I wanted a doll that could take a passy, which that's just some silly, insignificant thing once you are not even a seasoned collector, but any collector past like their first doll that gets into the community realizes real quick, like, geez, if there was no magnet at all, you could, buy some zip ties and take off the head and put a magnet in there and voila. Very easy. But, we don't think about that stuff when we first start coming in. So weight was another thing. I wanted to know how much the baby weighed. Obviously, you're thinking kind of the heavier, the better, is the more realistic. I questioned things like how many inches long the baby was, just trying to estimate the size of the baby, whereas nowadays when we look at a baby or a sculpt, not that you don't look perhaps at the at what it says for that kit, but a finished baby, an artist could put it on a different body, which could change the length, and then also the length isn't as far as the size of a baby. You also have the girth of a baby, the proportions of a sculpt, et cetera, et cetera. So once we get going, we realize and we look and we say, okay, is this sculpt a newborn size? Does it fit into newborn clothes or preemie clothes, or 0 to 3? Gives us a better gauge, and then just simply looking watching other collectors, and especially YouTube videos, because then you hear another collector talking and changing a doll and showing and saying this baby fits into this clothes, this or that. I would prefer, like when I had the Twinkies, the Twin A and Twin B, their artist did not put them on the recommended body. She chose a different body, which I loved because it just gave them that little tiny extra bit that pushed them into that they wore newborn clothes very well. Whereas a lot of people with Twin A and Twin B, a lot of collectors, said they struggled to find clothes for Twin A and Twin B because they were really a preemie size. So that body difference, and to me, they were proportioned beautifully. The Twinkies were, amazing babies. So anyway, it made me think about how I've changed as a collector. All of the gajillions of things that I've learned, here in my time collecting dolls, thinking about what was important to me when I was brand spanking new, what you kind of learn coming out of the gates and what you learn moving forward. So things like weight are irrelevant because you can add, take away, change weight, a body, you can change that, a magnet, you can change that. Heck, if you fell in love with a sculpt and painting on a baby and you wished for a different color hair or a different type of rooting, you could have a baby re-rooted. There's so many possibilities. So you come to realize pretty fast that you're not necessarily stuck with every little feature of that baby. I mean, obviously the painting, you understand what I'm saying, but there's things that can be changed very easily. So that's something. And the hair, I've definitely learned to appreciate the sparse rooting as so realistic, whereas I looked at it in the beginning almost as like I wouldn't say flaw, but I guess like, oh, they just didn't put enough hair, or I don't know what the heck I was thinking. My brain didn't put two and two together. Like, hey, Tasha, look at the realism on these babies that are sparsely rooted. Well, hello, like it was going hello, but something that just kind of took me a while, because when you get fixated on something like, oh, I was all about the hair, you become fixated. Meanwhile, I had no clue of quality of hair, quality of rooting, like nothing. Just, oh, make sure the baby has a head full of hair. So I thought it would be fun if you all told me a bit about what was important to you when you first started collecting and when you were first purchasing your first reborn, your first few reborns. What features were you looking for? What has changed along the way. Of course, I've changed in many ways, and I've learned my taste and style of painting and in different sculpts, etc., etc. But I just mean in the very, very, very beginning, like I explained, like, what were you asking a seller about, like, that you're looking, that was a concern to you, that would be of none now, and what has changed and what you look at. I had no clue about artists or sculpts, so I didn't know to ask for what artist, a COA, ask about matting, asking about, let's see, what else? I don't ask about mat. I mean, when you're buying from, higher end, it's usually not, a baby's matted well, whatever kind of finish that the artist puts, unless you have a very strong preference to, like, some people just don't like the totally smooth, some people don't like the baby's rougher, and if you're like one of those people that can't bond with a baby because of the matting, then obviously, no matter how many years you've been collecting, you're going to ask if you don't know what that artist type they use. And you should always ask, because artists change their styles of painting, their choice of matting, etc., etc. So if it's important to you, if it's something that's important to you like that, as a buyer, it's obviously your responsibility to ask. And I've had, certainly through my time, you've all seen the babies that have come in and out of my nursery as I was learning my style of sculpts and artists. So there was many times where I was like, oh, I kind of should have asked this or that, but that comes down to your personal preferences, and everybody has to, figure their way on that. And of course, you just go on to sell the baby just like you bought the baby, and, find what else you're looking for. Nothing really more to do with that. So anyways, and that's another thing that I didn't think of as a brand spanking new collector. I didn't really think of, selling a doll on. I kind of looked at the baby doll that I was purchasing, was like, that's what I was choosing for myself forever, and that sort of thing. In a certain way, I thought of selling, but not in the way like of learning your taste. I didn't quite have a handle on the fact that, because these dolls are collectibles, I thought possibly they would appreciate in value, or at the very least they would hold their value. Kind of sort of didn't grasp the concept of that kind of the more mommies that a doll goes through, the older it is, often it will depreciate in value. You will be able to get less for that doll the more times it's exchanged hands, etc., etc. Often, not always, but often. I really wasn't thinking about that. I was thinking like, oh wow, this is an investment, and it's an investment, and maybe years later the doll will be worth, a lot of money. You don't realize certain things, which is ties into the chat that I had about considering leaving YouTube, and how I kind of weighed in my head the pros and cons of it. And that's another thing there's just so much learning that we do from each other, from other collectors, through the visual and audio of YouTube, through through what other collectors are willing to share of their journey in collecting. From everything from the dolls to the clothing and accessories to the artist to the community and the dynamics of YouTube and the social dynamics of the community, all of it. There's just so much to learn, and it probably would, it could have taken me a lifetime to learn what I've learned in 2 years, if I learned all that ever, of researching and Googling and, looking through Facebook and Instagram and trying to piece things together, from a good I wouldn't say tutorial video, but just a good video of a seasoned collector talking about their doll, the artist, the sculpt, their preferences, showing a few things in one, 20-minute, half-hour video. Personally, I feel like I could learn what could have taken me 5 years to go and type and research and look up and try to piece together. If that makes sense. Now, maybe it's just me, maybe that's just the way that I learn, because everybody absorbs information differently. And some people are more of, researchers, book reader. I don't learn well from like books necessarily. I learn well from hands-on, hands-on and experience and listening to people talk and seeing things. So perhaps for someone else, the YouTube and watching and things like that would be irrelevant because you get more information researching it yourself. That I don't know. You could of course comment below and let me know if you feel the same about the YouTube, that is a big pro for us in the doll collecting community to share information and learn. And sometimes it's not even about a collector speaking, sharing information. They're just sharing their doll, whether they're sharing a box opening, they're doing a changing video, and they're just casually chatting about their personal preferences of the art, the baby, and whatever. And you're soaking up so much. You're learning so much. So I appreciate all you wonderful ladies and gentlemen out there that, have devote some of your time to a channel, to sharing your love of your hobby, your love of the dolls, because we learn, everybody learns that way. And I learn, there's always something new to learn. Obviously, nobody knows it all. So I'm learning new stuff every day. And when it's something that you just enjoy so much, I find that there's a great joy and satisfaction in every new thing that I learn each day from all of you. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate that I'm able to be on YouTube and share my journey and perhaps have people learn from me as well. And certainly I love and appreciate all of you that just share in my joy of my babies. I definitely would not be having as much fun in the collecting if I was not enjoying it all on YouTube with you all. Yes, I would be a collector. Yes, I would adore the babies, etc., but I wouldn't be as far into my collecting. I'm sure I wouldn't have many of the beautiful babies I have in my collection or have had the opportunity to own in my collection. And I definitely wouldn't be this immersed in the joy of the hobby, because there's just something special about sharing it along with a little bit of, bits and pieces of your life, enough for people to get to know who you are and enjoy following your channel. So there we have it for today. Comment below and let me know what you think of it all, about, how you were as a new collector, how you learned from YouTube, whatever piece. Let me know what you took away from this video. And while you're at it, please don't forget to head over now and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, thumbs down, obviously, if you didn't enjoy it. And if you did really enjoy it, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button and make sure and hit your notification bell as well, or the notification bell as well, because then you will receive notifications and invites to my live streams, notifications when, so you will never miss a video. I thank you all for being here, for sharing in this journey with me, and, for loving and appreciating these amazing works of art that most definitely wiggle their way into our hearts. It's an emotional hobby. It's a roller coaster of fun, love, joy. There's some riffraff that goes on from time to time on social media, and the rest of it is pure joy. So thank you all for sharing in that with me. I hope you all have a beautiful day. Until next time. God bless.